Hey, welcome to another hobby. I'm Austin, and today's hobby is Inktober 2024, day 1. So, normally, with the past 2 years, I did an Inktober prompt each day, and then added another one from a separate list, or from 2 randomly generated lists. This time, most of these prompts look, a little boring. A lot of them seem to be about hiking for some reason. So I'm not going to use these for every day. Instead, I've compiled a list of other lists, and I'm going to roll on them each day. I'm going to pick 2 at random and combine them together for a prompt. Some days I might decide to do 3 if I'm feeling extra saucy. And some days I've also compiled a list of artists with fairly unique styles. If I can't think of something I want to do, then I'll roll on that list and pick a style from it and try to emulate it in some sense. I will say that some of these lists I just, Googled quickly, found them online, and some of them are for very specific things that I just want to make clear that I'm not necessarily endorsing. I think like Gristober and Cradle Inktober are for specific media properties or people. This WATTOBER one I think is for a musician and media creative of some kind, and I'm not really aware of who they are, so I'm just putting that out there. This NDNA Arttober is for native representation. I'm not native myself, I just liked a lot of the words and prompts on here. I do want to point you to the links in the description for all of these things where I found them if you're interested in them, just so that they're credited. And there are some things in here that I may re-roll, just either if they're really boring, not giving me any inspiration, or if they're things that I feel like I shouldn't do, can't really represent properly. Like, for example, this one here is indigiqueer. I'm not a queer person, I'm not an indigenous person, so I feel like maybe I should just leave that to the people that are. Anyway, to start this off, what I'm going to do is spin these 2 wheels and see what 2 lists I get for day 1. Well, speaking of NDNA Arttober, I got on both of them, so I'm definitely going to have to re-roll one of them. Alright, and Cradle. We've got Pumpkin and Thunder. Being that this one is a fairly simple prompt, I might roll a 3rd to add into the mix, just to make it more interesting. WATTOBER. That is Floral Sheet Ghosts. Not sure what that means exactly. I think this WATTOBER one is probably all prompts based off of song names, if I had to guess. So, let's see, how can we work in Floral Sheet Ghosts, Pumpkin, and Thunder? Seems like maybe we could go with some sort of trick-or-treat scenario in a storm. Maybe 2 people in costumes, one with a sheet ghost and the other with a pumpkin head of some kind. I think this would actually be a good time to do an art style spin, since, again, it's a fairly simple prompt. It's not necessarily jumping out with any art style to me right off the bat. So let's see what we get from this. And I will say all of these 90-something artists I have in here are also going to be linked in the description if you're interested, as well as this wheel if you want to play along. Garrett Lee. Okay, let's look at some of their art and see what it looks like. I've got a list here with all of these links. I will say the links that I have in the description for these artists aren't all necessarily their official websites. I found most of these artists from a couple of websites like Art Upon, where they had a selection of links to artists on that website. This one, for example, is on Art Upon, but I'm sure you could find their official websites if you're interested in their art. Let's see, very painterly, almost cutout style. Fairly flat colors and strong shapes with hard edges. This will be an interesting one to try and emulate. So I think probably add some of these into Clip Studio as reference images. I like this old house. I might do something kind of like that for the trick-or-treaters to be walking up on, as well as this darker view as sort of a base for coloring and overall tone for the piece. Might not even use this underwater one much. It's nice for some coloring. Might use it for a bit of color picking stuff, but I'll open up my references on the side here. I think what I'm going to do is turn on my pure ref. That'll be where I put any other references that I compile right now. If anybody's wondering, pure ref is an awesome free program where you can just drag in a bunch of images and use them as reference for your art. Very handy. So I think it looks like with this artist style, actually maybe I should put his name on screen. So yeah, probably won't need any, perspective rulers or anything like that. So we'll just kind of start sketching it out. Might use some rulers later to keep the lines straight, but for the sketch for now to start, I think we'll just work with some simple blue lines, pencil lines, get a basic idea of what we're looking at. Based on the fact that his stuff is so kind of straight on, flat, almost Wes Anderson style kind of shots, I'll do sort of a sideways view of a building, with maybe a staircase going up, and the kids going up towards it. I'm gonna see if I can find any Garrett Lee art with people or characters in it. So it looks like his newer art is a little less straight on, flat, but I do like that style, so I'm going to stick with it and just kind of try to incorporate these people that are a little bit more three-dimensional, I guess. I'm going to want the composition to be mostly people, probably. Although, I do like the building. Maybe I can keep the people fairly small and make it mostly building by... let's try shrinking down the stairs a little. So if I have like a bedsheet ghost person like this, and maybe a pumpkin head kid here. Actually, I have an idea. I like the idea of this little pumpkin head kid being like, his costume's not really working right for him, and he's having a hard time seeing what he's doing, so he's going to be kind of lifting up the front of it and looking out. And this kid's got to have like a hole where he's got his candy bucket. Ooh, actually, what if we had him also kind of struggling with his costume a little bit? So maybe he didn't think ahead and put a hole for his candy bucket. So instead he's kind of awkwardly reaching out one of the eye holes. Probably should draw like a bit of a base shape underneath, so I know that what his body's doing under there, but yeah, let's try that on a different layer just quick. If I have him reaching through the mouth, yeah, let's try that. So one thing you're definitely gonna notice with me going through these these Inktober things is I have no idea what I'm doing when I'm going into them. I'm just kind of starting and hoping I get somewhere interesting. Doesn't always work out. I'd say a good third of the ones in previous years I wasn't super happy with the outcome at the end, but for the most part it seems to work. Sometimes I get more inspired, sometimes a little bit less. This one I don't feel like I've got a super strong idea on where I'm going with it yet, but hopefully it'll start coming together. I think the mouth one doesn't quite work. It looks a little silly, so I like it better reaching through the eyes. This other kid needs some love. Let's have him lean forward so that when his head is bending back, it's a little bit more extreme of a pose, more cartoony. Yeah, that's looking better. I think I'm gonna want a bit of a porch with maybe like a candy bowl on it, and then having the main lighting probably coming from like a front door or window shining on the kids, and then like lighting in the background from some lightning that's more blue and kind of lighting up the horizon behind them. So we'll say that the door probably goes about here, and we'll put a little like awning thing, and the light will be kind of casting out like that. Put a little table, some candy, and alright, now about this house. Do you like how this one in the bottom looks a little more than the one in the top? One in the top's a little bit too plain for my style, but I think this one's probably a little too complex for what I'm going for with this picture. So we'll try to make like a sort of simplified version of it. I do like this little spire, so we'll put something like that here, and then maybe roof behind it. Put like one of those little window things on top, and put another roof slanting off this spire. Don't have any front facing roofs, so maybe this one is like kind of going around this corner. Kind of a blank space on the front here. Do like a little basement window. Backstairs? Do I want backstairs? Probably not. Maybe we'll make that a fence. What about horizon? Do we want it to be mostly blank? Low horizon? I think having a bit of a hill with like a fence on it might be nice. So if this is kind of like a little bit of a lonely house at the end of the line, and then I can put like in the background the rest of the city, the neighborhood they came from. Let's keep it going up. How about? And then we can have like clouds in the sky up here, and like a big ol' lightning bolt. Actually, I think having that really stylized sharp lightning bolt might be a good idea. I was going to do it more accurate, realistic style, but I think this kind of fits the art style we're going for with Garrett Lee's art. I think what I'm going to do is set up some rulers. So what I'm doing here is I'm just setting up this oil paint brush to have a bit of variation in the color when I use it, so that it'll give it a bit more texture kind of for free as I paint. I think the way I'm going to do this is kind of just paint in blocks of color and then use an eraser to cut them down to these nice clean shapes afterwards. And I think I'm just going to like start off by color picking from this original image and using it as sort of like the base to get started. And I think with mine, to make it a little bit creepier, I'm going to desaturate it just a little. And to start, I think just to get a background in, I'm going to do a gradient of that light to dark sky. I'm just going to go over this sky with this oil brush a little bit, just to kind of give it a little bit more variation. I think I'm going to need some dark clouds in the sky though, so let's try filling some of that in. This is probably all going to have to change with the lighting from the actual lightning, but this will give me a good base to work from. It's always good to just have like a lot of color down to kind of start blending with and working with. It makes things a little bit easier. This is straying a little bit from the art style we're going for. The skies seem to be fairly crisp, hard edges, but we might try to bring that back a little bit more going forward, or just might leave it. We'll see what I feel like. I'm mostly using the art style thing as inspiration, not trying to necessarily duplicate it, one to one. What I'm doing here is just kind of filling in this whole shape with this color I'm decided to use as like accent, and then I have this this mask set to mask it all off, and then I'm going to use the mask to draw it back in using that color. Alright, coming up on finishing touches here. Didn't end up turning out exactly how I planned it to. I don't know if I totally captured the style that I was kind of going for here, but I think it gave me a good starting off point, and then I was able to kind of take it where I wanted. I feel like there's a bit of a clash in styles between the background and the foreground, with the foreground being very flat and the background being more three-dimensional. But I think I might be able to kind of hide a bit of that just by reducing some of the contrast in the background so you don't notice it quite as much. So let's try and do some of that by just like toning this down a little. And then I think last I'm just gonna try adding a little bit of the kind of special effects, I guess you'd call it, just to see if I can make things just come alive a little bit more. The way I'm gonna do that is with some lighting stuff and some polygonal lasso. So if I draw out whereabouts the light is radiating from, and then get my big soft brush, it's nice yellow, and I can kind of just gently add a bit of that glow coming out of the door frame there. Just get rid of it off this little bar and do just a slight glow around the lightning. And let's do these windows too, why not? They could use a bit of a haze going around them. Crop it and call it done, I guess. Thanks again to Garrett Lee, the artist who I kind of used as inspiration, and thanks for watching me explore another hobby. Have a good one.